Have you ever wondered why people from certain cultures like the Japanese often appear similar to outsiders? It might seem like a touchy subject, but it's a question born out of genuine curiosity, and it's not without basis or explanation. This common perception, while perhaps surprising to some, actually has roots in science. It's all about human genetics and geography, two fields that intertwine in the most fascinating ways. So, let's dive into the science of human genetics and geography to understand this fascinating phenomenon. Before we delve into the reasons, it's crucial to debunk the stereotypes that often cloud our perception. Stereotypes, while seemingly innocuous, can significantly influence how we perceive and understand the world around us. They can be particularly misleading when it comes to recognizing diversity within ethnic groups. It's pretty common to hear statements such as, "People from this or that ethnicity look the same." But is this really the case? Most of the time, this perceived similarity is less about actual physical resemblance, and more about a lack of exposure or familiarity with the group in question. When we are not accustomed to the distinguishing features of a certain ethnic group, we may tend to lump them together, overlooking their individual differences. In reality, each person is unique, and the diversity within each ethnic group is vast and fascinating. Now that we've unpacked the stereotypes, let's delve into the scientific aspects. Our genes play a significant role in how we look, and in the case of the Japanese population, it's no different. Let's dive into the concept of a genetic pool. Imagine it as a vast library brimming with books, each book representing a unique gene variant. The wider the range of books, the greater the genetic diversity within that pool. Now imagine if that library were to shrink, offering fewer unique books. This is essentially what happens in a smaller genetic pool. There are fewer unique gene variants and thus less genetic diversity. This brings us to the Japanese archipelago. Japan, being an island nation, has had a history of geographic isolation. This isolation didn't just come from the surrounding seas but also from the mountainous terrain that splits the land into separate pockets. This led to smaller, isolated communities with limited gene flow between them, effectively shrinking the genetic libraries of these communities. Over time, the genetic pool of these communities started to look quite similar. You see, when there's less diversity in the gene pool, the chance of sharing similar gene variants, including those affecting physical appearance, increases. This resulted in more physical similarities among the Japanese population. But geography isn't the only contributing factor here. Societal homogeneity also plays a part. For much of its history, Japan has maintained a somewhat closed society with limited immigration. This meant fewer opportunities for new genetic material to enter the pool, further narrowing the genetic diversity. Now, it's important to remember that while these factors contribute to a general trend of physical similarity, they don't mean every Japanese person looks the same. Just as every book in a library can tell a different story, every individual carries a unique set of genes that makes them distinct. In essence, genetics and geography have combined to create a somewhat homogeneous look in the Japanese population. Genetics isn't the only factor at play here. Culture and environment also play a part. Let's start with culture. In Japan, a shared cultural background and societal norms often set the stage for unifying practices. Beauty standards, fashion and grooming habits all come into play here. Think about it. When everyone around you is following the same fashion trends, using similar makeup styles, and adhering to the same beauty standards, a visual sense of similarity is bound to manifest. In Japan, the cultural trend leans toward a natural, minimalistic look. Women often prefer light, subtle makeup, which places more emphasis on the natural features. The same goes for men, where clean-shaven faces and neatly styled hair are the norm. These shared grooming habits can create an illusion of homogeneity, further amplifying the perceived similarities. Now let's talk about the environment. Japan is an island nation, meaning that its inhabitants share a common environment. This shared environment, including the diet and climate, can subtly influence physical characteristics. For instance, the traditional Japanese diet is rich in fish, rice, and vegetables. It's a diet that promotes healthy skin and lean bodies, further contributing to a uniform physical appearance. The climate, too, plays a significant role. Japan's temperate climate means less sun exposure, which can result in a fairer skin tone common among the population. This shared skin tone, a result of the environment, can also contribute to perceived similarities. Remember, these factors don't mean that all Japanese people look the same. Instead, they illuminate how shared cultural practices and environmental factors can influence physical traits and create a perception of similarity. It's about understanding the power of perception and how easily our minds can be tricked into seeing patterns, even where there are none. So while genetics set the stage, culture and environment also contribute to the perceived similarity. So, why do the Japanese often look like each other to outsiders? Let's take a moment to wrap up what we've covered. Our initial perceptions of similarity are often influenced by societal stereotypes that tend to oversimplify and group people together. These stereotypes can be misleading and do not reflect the true diversity within any given population. When we dive into the science, we find that genetics plays a significant role. The Japanese islands, being somewhat isolated, have a relatively homogeneous genetic pool. This leads to shared physical characteristics among the population, such as the same hair and eye color, that might make individuals appear similar to the untrained eye. But it's not just about genetics. Geography, culture, and environment also play their part. The unique combination of these factors in Japan has created a society with shared customs and norms, including fashion and grooming trends, that might contribute to perceived similarities. However, it's important to note that this doesn't mean everyone looks the same. Far from it. Just as with any other culture, Japanese individuals have a myriad of unique features and characteristics that set them apart. In the end, it's a mix of science and perception that leads us to believe that people from a specific culture look alike. But remember, every individual is unique, despite shared traits.